The tennis world is stunned, and Alex Eala just made sure nobody could look away. What happened in Berlin was already one of the most talked about stories of the 2026 season. But what came after the match, in a press conference that nobody was fully prepared for, has sent shockwaves through the sport in a way that goes far beyond anything that happened on the court. Eala did not give the media the standard answers. She did not offer the polished, carefully managed response that players are coached to deliver when the cameras are rolling and the room is full. Instead, she said something real, something raw, something that immediately changed the entire conversation around her name and around professional tennis as a whole. Brace yourselves, because what she said is more powerful than anyone expected. What Berlin was supposed to mean the sun was setting over the courts of Berlin as the tournament reached its final stages. For Eala, this was supposed to be the next significant step in a career that has been building towards something extraordinary. This was her stage, her opportunity to prove to the world and to herself that she belonged among the very best. Instead, it became something harder, a test that went beyond tennis. A moment that pushed her to a limit that scoreboards and statistics simply cannot measure. The match itself was a brutal contest. Every point demanded something from her. Every rally was a negotiation between what her body could still offer and what the moment required. Her opponent was experienced, precise, and relentless, someone who had spent years learning exactly how to turn a younger player's strengths into vulnerabilities before they even realized it was happening. From early in the match, something felt different. There was a tightness that had not been there in the rounds before. A tension in her movement that contrasted sharply with the freedom and confidence she had displayed when she eliminated the world number 2 and the world number 8 on consecutive nights. The composure that had defined her entire week began to show cracks. The errors mounted. The first set slipped away. Then the second. When the final point was played, the stadium went quiet in a way that said everything. She stood on the court for a moment, a single figure under the stadium lights, and the weight of the defeat was visible in every part of her. It was not simply a loss. It felt like something more significant, a slow and painful conclusion to a tournament that had held so much promise, arriving at the exact moment when the story seemed to be pointing towards something even greater. The press conference that changed everything. The official post-match press conference carried the usual tension. Cameras ready. Microphones extended. The room waiting for the version of events that athletes are expected to deliver. Measured, professional, forward-looking. Eala had something else in mind. With her voice carrying the unmistakable weight of genuine emotion and her eyes still glistening, she refused to retreat behind polished language. What she said instead stopped the room completely. When asked about the match, she spoke of loneliness. "I felt completely alone out there." The words landed in the silence, like something physical. Journalists looked at one another. Nobody had expected this. How could a player backed by a world-class academy, supported by an entire nation, and surrounded by a team of professionals feel so profoundly isolated in the middle of one of the biggest matches of her life? But she did not stop there. She continued, her voice moving between anger and sorrow, and what came next was not a complaint. It was a confession. She spoke of the pressure she carries. Not just the pressure to win matches, but the pressure to be something larger than a tennis player. To be a symbol, a source of hope for a country of over 100 million people who watch her every match, as if the result carries the weight of something that extends far beyond sport. She described what it feels like to carry that, and to feel in the moments when it matters most, that the support structure around her is not always enough to hold the full weight of what she is being asked to bear. This was not a frustrated athlete having a difficult day in front of microphones. This was something far more significant. A young woman standing in front of the world and telling the truth about what professional sport actually costs, not in terms of physical effort, but in terms of the interior life of a person who has been competing at the highest level since she was a teenager. Her vulnerability was not a weakness in that room. It was the most powerful thing she could have possibly said. The world responded instantly. Within seconds of her words reaching the internet, the reaction was unlike anything the tennis world had seen in years. Social media erupted. The hashtag around her name trended globally within minutes. It was no longer a story about a tennis match. It had become a story about what it means to be a young athlete carrying the hopes of an entire nation, and what happens when the human being behind the results finally speaks honestly about the cost. Her supporters, the Eala Nation, responded with a wave of emotion that crossed borders and time zones. Messages flooded in from every corner of the world. Fan art, video tributes, and personal stories from people who recognized something of themselves in what she had described. The rallying cry that emerged online was simple and direct. You are not alone. But the conversation was not one-sided. Alongside the outpouring of support came a fierce wave of debate. Questions were raised about her coaching setup, about how young players are managed within high-pressure sporting systems, about whether the structures around her were genuinely equipped to support not just her tennis, but the full reality of her situation. Online communities dissected everything: her training environment, the demands placed on her, the pace at which her career had accelerated. More importantly, something deeper began to take root beneath all of it. Sports analysts, former players, and fans from completely outside the tennis world started asking bigger questions about the culture of elite sport, about what we actually demand from young athletes when we make them into symbols before they have even had the chance to fully become themselves, about whether the systems built to produce champions are also built to protect the people inside them. Her honesty had cracked something open, and what poured through was a conversation the sport had needed to have for a long time. What comes next in the immediate aftermath, the most pressing question, is a simple one. What now? For Eala, the loss is real. The hurt is real. But for a competitor built the way she is, for a player who absorbed the full force of Elena Rybakina's serve and sent it back, who matched Alina Svitolina's patience rally for rally and found a way through, this moment of devastating honesty is not the end of anything. It is the beginning of something more complete. True champions are not forged in victory alone. They are shaped in the moments that cost the most, where the gap between what is asked of them and what they have left becomes visible, and they are forced to reckon honestly with what they find there. Her path forward begins with exactly what she named in that press conference: a rebuilding of her support structure, not just technically, but emotionally. Ensuring that the people around her are equipped to address not only the mechanics of her game, but the full reality of what she carries every time she walks onto a court. Her mental resilience, already formidable, will need to become the foundation rather than just the backup system. The questions the tennis world is now asking are real ones. Does she return to the familiar environment of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain to regroup and restore? Does she channel everything she felt in Berlin into preparation for the North American hard court season? Does the fire that was visible in every word of that press conference become the fuel for something that silences every remaining doubt about who she is as a competitor? Those questions will be answered on the court. They always are. But the conversation she started off the court, the one that spread across the globe in the hours after that press conference, that one has a life of its own now.
And it is not going away.
What this moment actually means long after the grass stains of Berlin have faded, this moment will remain. Not as a monument to defeat, as a monument to something considerably rarer in professional sport: the courage to tell the truth about what it actually costs to do what she does, at the level she does it, carrying everything she carries, week after week after week. Eala's decision to speak honestly in that press room, to stand in front of cameras after the most painful night of her season and refuse to give the world a performance, will matter beyond tennis. It will matter to every young athlete who has ever felt the gap between what they are expected to project and what they actually feel. It has opened a door that needed to be opened. And the conversation about mental health, about the real support structures that elite athletes need, about the human cost of being made into a symbol before you are fully formed, that conversation is now happening at a volume that cannot be ignored. She showed that being a champion is not only about trophies and rankings. It is about the courage to be authentic, to acknowledge difficulty without apology, and to fight back, not with a performance but with the truth. Her legacy from Berlin will not be the loss. It will be what she said afterward, and what the world did with it. The image of her in that press conference will not be remembered as the moment a rising star cracked. It will be remembered as the moment she became something more than a tennis player, She carries into her next tournament not just the hopes of a nation, but the genuine admiration of a global audience that now sees her not only as a competitor, but as someone with the courage to be fully, honestly human in a world that rarely makes space for that. The story is not over. It is only now becoming what it was always going to be, and we will be here for every chapter of it. This is Tennis Unfiltered, where the real stories get told.